Hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar on automating and innovating with new OCI document understanding. My name is Tara Van Cleve and I'm a marketing event manager for the developer initiative here at Oracle. Today we're excited to show you an in-depth look at OCI document understanding and how this new AI service is making it easier for developers to obtain text, tables, and other key data from document files through pre-trained or custom-trained AI models. If you do not currently have an Oracle Cloud account, we've got a special promotion with extra credits so that you can try out OCI services and follow along with the demo today. To access the promo, please sign up using the same email you registered with for the event. We'll also be recording the session, and the link to the recording will be sent to you via email in the next couple of days. If you have any questions during the webinar, we've set up a channel in our developer public Slack called Oracle AI ML Services that you can access at the QR code or at bit.ly/odevrel_Slack. Once you're in, you'll land in the general channel, and from there you can search for the webinar channel. We'll also be checking the Zoom chat and Zoom Q&A areas throughout the webinar, and we'll open up for the live Q&A after the demo. Today's webinar will be presented by Principal Product Manager Kate D'Orazio. Special thanks to Sherry Tao, Senior Product Marketing Manager, who will be helping answer questions. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Kate.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. Again, my name is Kate D'Orazio. I'm the Product Manager for OCI Document Understanding Service. So today I'll walk through basically a high-level overview of what the service is, what its key capabilities are, and I'll demo basically some of the different ways that you can interact with the service. And again, as Tara mentioned, if you have any questions, just don't hesitate to post them and we'll start to look through them as they come along. All right, so let's get started. The first thing I just want to talk about is where OCI Document Understanding sits within Oracle AI. So Oracle AI has a number of different services that utilize both structured and unstructured data. For example, we have machine learning services like OCI Data Science that allow you to rapidly build, train, deploy, and manage machine learning models. We have Oracle Database Machine Learning that allows you to uncover hidden patterns and insights in enterprise data. And we have OCI Data Labeling Service, which helps you build data sets so that you can use those to train machine learning models. Then on top of this, we have AI services, and these are really targeted towards developers who are looking to add AI to their applications, but they may or may not have the data science background to be able to do this from scratch. So OCI Document Understanding is one of those AI services, basically sitting a layer above the machine learning services. So what do you really get when you use OCI Document Understanding service? It's really meant to be a powerful and easy to use tool for developers to extract text, tables, and other types of key information from really any type of document. So I'll spend some time sort of walking through each of these key capabilities and what some of the common use cases are in some of this overview today. So the first capability that I'll talk about is text recognition, or OCR. Text recognition works by extracting the text out of various PDFs or documents. This works on both text and handwritten, basically printed or handwritten content, even if the information is tilted, rotated, shaded, or curved, and some of the examples that you see here on this slide here. So you can see the receipt photo has a bit of a fold within it. These are all sort of meant to simulate and be able to handle a lot of real world scenarios that handle business documents where there's a lot of times things that have a mobile capture, or they're just sort of old scanned documents that are part of an archival work to basically start digitizing all of those documents to automate some sort of process. So there's a lot of different applications for text extraction. This can be used for things that are scanned, like business reports that are in some sort of PDF format, invoices and receipts, a lot of application forms, and then also things like product labels or, again, mobile uploaded types of content. The next feature that I'll talk about is document classification. And again, this is another pre-trained model that just works out of the box. The idea here is that document classification can identify the type of document that you pass to the service. So this can classify a few different types of common documents that you may be trying to handle or categorize, like invoices, receipts, tax forms, pay slips, resumes, where maybe there's a certain type of end destination, like a folder or some sort of particular action you want to take depending on what the document class is. You'd want to use this type of feature for those types of use cases where, you may handle, store, or sort of act on different documents depending on what they are within your larger corpus of data. In this next feature we have is table extraction. So in this case, you can think about a scenario where you have some sort of document that has a variety of different tables, and the document understanding service can identify, first of all the tables that are in the document, and then also extract that information with the row and column location maintained, so that instead of getting basically a chunk of OCR text, you can actually do things like parse out just one column of information or one row of information, or basically just keep that relationship intact when you're handling that in some sort of end destination. This works for basically tables that have borders, or if they don't have borders, because both are very common in various business documents, and it can work with basically multiple tables within one document as well. And this is really common in a few different scenarios. Anything that has line item information, which is often in some form of like a bank statement or in invoices and purchase orders, and also a lot of things that have market reports or contract data. Oftentimes there's table information about maybe payment plans, licensed goods that are mentioned within the document itself. So this next category of features, and there's several types that we have that I'll explain, is key value extraction. So this is something that we have, this first scenario is specifically for invoices, where it's another pre-trained model. So we've identified that there's a number of different pieces of key information that you would want to sort of extract from any type of invoice document. So this is a pre-trained model that identifies a list of supported fields. This is just a subset of the fields that are supported within the invoice key value extraction model. We have a full list of them on our documentation page, but some of the ones here included are things like customer name, purchase order, shipping total, the various line item information, payment terms. Again, things that you might want to use for some sort of invoice processing type of use case. Now, I mentioned that we have different key value extraction models for different types of documents. So you can see we have another one here for receipts. The receipt one has some similarities to invoice key value extraction, but there are some different elements for specifically receipts, like tip, which is often not sort of present within an invoice. And then in addition to receipts and invoices, we also have key value extraction for passports. So this works for any NRZ supported passport to extract things like the passport ID, name, expiration date. And then we also have the same key value extraction model supported for driver's licenses. Now this works for both US and UK driver's licenses. So, New York, California, Minnesota, any of those will work, where it's extracting out, again, things like your first name, your last name, the driver ID number, again, all those common fields that you might find on an identity document like a driver's license. So why don't I go ahead and give you an example of what this looks like here actually in the console. So I'm just going to pull that up right now. So here I'm in the OCI console, and because this is a generally available service, you can actually go here too. I'll just show you how you can navigate. If you're in the console, you would go to Analytics and AI, and then if you look under AI Services, you'll see Document Understanding. And this will bring you to basically the homepage of the Document Understanding service. And this is sort of like a no-code experience where you can easily try out what's in the service and see what it can offer, and you can also try out the different features using your own documents as well. So I'll just briefly show you a little bit of what I was mentioning on the slides here. So this first example here is text extraction, where you can see for this sample document, you can basically extract either line or word level information from the document itself. And then you can also just see here, if you're curious about how this behaves programmatically, what the JSON request actually looks like for the service here, where you're calling a feature called text extraction. And you can look here also for what the actual output is for this feature, where the actual output is a JSON object that has basically the text, the confidence score, and the normalized vertices for where that text was detected on a document. So similarly here, I'll show you what this looks like for basically table extraction, where again, this is a document that has a table right here that is detected and extracted. This also works for very dense tables like this one here. That's a market report over several quarters. And you can see basically all of the columns and rows are extracted out here. For key value extraction, I'll just briefly show one example here for an invoice where you can see basically things like the vendor address, the vendor ID, invoice date, and things like the line item information are getting extracted from this invoice here. And this is an example here for document classification where you can see this document is being classified as a bank statement. And then for this one here, it's being classified as a receipt. So at this point here, I actually want to take a brief pause and actually open up a couple of poll questions, if that's all right, Tara, because I'm going to talk a little bit about different use cases here. Okay, so I'll let people keep on answering as I walk through this, but I was curious. It seems like some of the most common documents that this group is working with are bank statements or invoices, as well as contracts. So just to talk at a high level first about different use cases you can leverage this service for, one of the most basic ones is to be able to enhance the search experience, where if you have a lot of document files that are, again, in some sort of structured or semi-structured, unstructured or semi-structured format, you may want to enrich that file with metadata that include things like the document type, all the text if it's not already there, depending on the file format, and certain key fields that you can make retrieval and search much easier. Another really common use case for specifically the invoice key value extraction is invoice automation or employee expensing, also for receipts, where you extract data from invoices like the amount, the date, payment terms to be able to process invoices for payment. So this is something that's often done in a semi-manual format that can be made a bit more efficient. One also bucket of use cases that I haven't touched on yet is really just an analytics scenario where a lot of times when we're creating predictive models, there's always a bias of really using structured data, obviously. And the easiest structured data is probably already handled in a way where it's, in a table or a database somewhere. But actually, you could use something like the document understanding service to create more structured training data for some sort of predictive model. So you could basically use the key field information from invoices or other types of document data to make maybe a better forecasting model or maybe an anomaly detection type of model based off of, again, the data that's already present in the document that just is, again, not in the right structured format for those analytical models originally. There's also many sort of line of business use cases that are possible. So you can imagine for things like HR management that a lot of times this requires some sort of population of identity documents within human resource management systems. And this is something that you can do really efficiently with like our passport or key value extraction types of features. Contract management is another tricky one where a lot of times the text needs to be extracted from the document as well as tables of information like payment schedules or licensed products. That is done very manually today, maybe for audit purposes or just for retention purposes. And there's also a lot of supply chain use cases too with documents that include bills of lading or other types of shipping labels where you want to extract that information to track and manage any type of logistics tasks that are happening. So that was just a brief overview of what some of our limited GA features look like, but I want to also talk a little bit about our limited availability features. So not only do we support custom pre-trained models, but we also support custom models for document classification and for key value extraction. So this really allows you to tailor those types of features to your industry-specific or customer-specific data, which really opens the door for a lot of different types of use cases that you may want to go after And I'll just do a brief demo with one scenario to sort of show you what could be possible with using custom key value extraction just to sort of start off with. And I'll also show through this demo basically how you can do this end to end. So let me first start with the data labeling service. So let's imagine that I am some sort of manufacturer and I handle a lot of shipping labels that are coming in from subcontractors, and I want to extract key fields that are coming in from those specific types of documents. So I could actually just create my own custom model to extract those fields based off of the document that matters to me. The first thing I would do is I need to create a data set. That's what you'll train using the document understanding service. So this is really straightforward here. Let me just first 1 second switch the compartment I'm in right now. So to create a data set, basically what you'll do is you'll name it. So maybe I'll call this shipping label, and you're going to annotate a document. It's going to be a key value annotation. And then you can upload your document files either from a local location or from object storage. And then I need to select the location of where I want this data set to be stored in object storage. So I'll select a location. And I'm going to just upload some local files, and I'll show you basically what this looks like. So for key value extraction, this requires a minimum of 5 documents that you need to train on. So basically 5 label versions for anything that you're looking for. So I have 6 here. I'm only going to upload 5, and I'll use the 6th one to show you what this looks like on the trained model. So I have 5 samples here, and now I have to define the labels that I'm trying to annotate and then eventually support within my custom key value model. So for this, there's really 4 fields I'm looking for in these documents. It's basically a shipping ID. I'll call it shipping ID, the carrier name, the truck number, and who this is for, so the recipient. So I've defined all the labels I want for this data set. I basically review my information here, and clicking create will generate a new data set in data labeling service. That may take a minute, so I'm just going to show you what's already been created. So once a data set has actually been created, you'll see this, this overview page with each of the records. So this is an example where I've actually labeled all of these documents here, but I'll show you what this looks like first for an unlabeled one. So I'm just going to remove the labels first to show you what this looks like when you're first going into one of these documents. Again, this is just one example, again, where I'm trying to extract these shipping or bill of lading documents, and these are my samples. So when I first go into one of these documents, it will look like this, where essentially all of the text is annotated with bounding boxes. And all I need to do is I need to select the correct values for these fields that I've defined when I was creating the data set. So this one here is the shipping ID. And again, I only need to annotate the value, not the actual field name for shipping ID. For carrier name, that one is right here. The recipient, I can actually drag over for more than one word as well and assign both of those as recipients. And then trailer number is right here. So I basically go through that process and just tick through annotating all 5 of my documents. And I know I'm done when I look at basically this here, and every single one of these has a status of labeled. And you can see that I've first named this dataset demo overview. So now that I have a data set that I can work with, I can actually train this using the document understanding service. So what I do here, also 1 second, let me just switch compartments for this one too. So what I do when I'm in the document understanding service is I go to projects, and basically this is a place where you can collect all the different types of models that you're trying to use for one particular use case. And I click create model. I select which type of model I want to train. So in this case, it's a key value extraction model. And then I choose my data set. So remember, this is called demo overview. You can see I can choose from my dropdown here that I'm selecting the demo overview data set. Then I'm going to name this model, and I'm going to choose the recommended training duration. Then I review my information here, and clicking Create and Train kicks off a new training job. Again, this can take some minutes, so I'm going to show you what I've already trained. And you'll see all your models here. Every model has a state of either active, in progress, deleted, or failed. And once a model has been in the active state, you can actually click into it and get the model details. So there's some pretty important and helpful information here. There's overall training metrics for the entire model. There's a model OSID, which I'll show you why you'll use this in a bit. And there's also a reference to the training data asset you use to train this model. If you want basically the label level metrics, you can see those under the training metrics section here. And then I'll show you basically how this works for if you're trying to actually call a given model. So this is the 6 documents that I didn't train the model on. And I'll show you basically how this works. So you can see that it's identified the carrier name, shipping ID is here, the recipient, and the trailer number. So this behaves very similarly to if you're just calling a pre-trained key value model. The only difference is that you actually in your API request pass a model ID, and that model ID is the model OSID that you see here. So that's basically end-to-end how you can label and then train your own custom model. And the process is very similar for document classification as well, if you want to create your own custom set of document classes for categorization purposes. So I'll just sort of briefly talk about what additional types of use cases are possible if you're using custom models. Again, there's really a wide range of opportunities because of the fact that you can train on, any type of document using this feature. But some scenarios, if you're in, maybe the financial services sector, this could be used for KYC verification, where a lot of times a banking company may ask for many different types of documents to show a proof of income, proof of address, proof of identity. So maybe there's certain supported documents that you would allow a customer to submit that show maybe a proof of address, and you can create your own custom key value extraction model to extract the address from that, document that you allow. Maybe you allow a certain type of tax document or something along those lines. And you could also use a custom document classification model to classify among all of the sort of allowed documents that you let a user submit to sort of verify that everything looks accurate. In more of the medical domain, you could imagine this could be something that is used for something like a prescription automation scenario, where a lot of times prescription labels are printed out, and also the requests are something that are faxed and originally in a paper format, where you could create a custom model to extract key information like the RX number to make some of these manual steps a bit more automated and streamlined. And then another category of scenarios for custom document classification and key value extraction are on sort of both employee as well as student onboarding scenarios, where a lot of times if you're a new applicant, either in a student, an education or an employee scenario, you need to send various different types of documents. Sometimes it's identity documents, sometimes even vaccination records, proof of address, recommendation letters. And you could automatically classify those documents and then maybe extract specific fields depending on that type of document into a submission tool or some sort of backend client management tool. Okay, so now that we've sort of shown this through the console, I want to walk through how you can do some of, you can use the document understanding service with our Python SDK. So I have a few different scripts that I'll just show you for this. And this is something that basically I'll assume, and I have a full tutorial for anyone who wants to use it for reference afterwards, but I'll assume some things when I'm doing this demo that you basically already have the OCI SDK installed, that you have pip installed, and that you've sort of set up your OCI config file. But if there's any sort of questions about how some of those prerequisite steps work, I'll just sort of briefly show you, and I have a link to this a little bit later on, but we have a whole workshop here for specifically the document understanding service. And we have one section on the Python SDK that walks through some of those steps for if you don't know how to basically, generate an API signing key, set up your config file, anything along those lines, you can refer to our lab for those steps there. And I'll just basically jump into more of just the actual script itself. So the way that the document understanding APIs work is that basically each time you're trying to call for a feature, you're creating and you're using our processor job API. So this works with basically a single document, but you can also send the service a series of documents as well. And this will basically generate a job ID, and then you can get the details of that job ID. Once it's complete, it stores the response in a predefined object storage location that you submitted as part of the initial request. So for this first script here, basically what's happening is I am defining basically the location of where I have a document already stored. I'm setting up basically the output location of where I want the results to be stored in object storage. I'm then creating a processor job for specifically key value extraction for this example here. Then I'm basically going to be calling the service until it's in a lifecycle state of succeeded. And then once it's succeeded, I'm going to actually pull the results from object storage, and I'm going to print the results here. This is also something where we have the sample code for basically each of the key features in the document understanding service, also available on GitHub. So I'll show you this one here. So you can see basically this is the initial request that has been made. I'm using this for an invoice. You can see also in the sample script that I define the document type as invoice right here. You don't necessarily need to do that. If you just call key value extraction without defining the document type, it will essentially try to run our pre-trained document classification. And if it detects that it is an invoice, you can still successfully use the key value feature. But let me just sort of open this up here. You can see basically everything that's being extracted here is the response back from this invoice. So you can see basically all the key fields, name, confidence score, normalized vertices, as well as the OCR text is also returned as part of this response. So basically, this is a use case for how you can use the Python SDK to interact with our service. And then that obviously gives you some flexibility. So I have this version here where maybe I don't want actually all the information that's coming back in this JSON format. I really just only want the list of the key fields. Let's imagine I'm someone who's trying to submit an employee expense reimbursement type of tool, and I just want the specific fields that I use for reimbursement purposes. So for this example here where I'm just parsing this information, I can basically show you that my original document looked like this that I was submitting to the service. You can see basically shipping cost, total tax, the name of the thing I'm trying to get the reimbursement for, versus again the whole sort of whole set of information that I get from the traditional JSON response. I'll also just quickly show one other type of scenario here with another script where basically let's imagine that I'm someone who is handling a lot of contract data where again there's sort of like tables of information and that's what I want out of the contracts and I need to do something with it. And this can be done in a really manual and tedious process today where I need to maybe put that information in Excel so I can do some sort of analysis on it, or maybe I need to do an audit on it or something along those lines. Like here's an example of, a contract where there's some sort of there might be sort of a payment term or payment plan period. So I want to extract those types of tables and I want to populate that in Excel. So you can see here, I have this one Excel, doesn't have anything in it. And basically what this script is going to do is it's going to, I'm using a local file. So it's basically converting the file into a base64 encoded file. I'm going to call the document understanding service with the table extraction feature. And then I'm actually just going to basically extract and export the table information into an Excel. So we open up that Excel now. You can see basically that whole period and payment plan table is now basically all populated in this Excel. So that saves a lot of time and effort and also potential errors from happening. So I'll go back to the PowerPoint now and walk through a few more different types of demos as well. So actually I just showed that one for the table export to Excel. Okay, so one more demo I want to show. Basically, we've gone through how you can use a service via the console. We've shown you how to use the Python SDK. We also have SDKs for Java and a variety of different other languages. You can use the CLI, but we also provide a REST API experience. And the reason why I want to bring this up too is that we have a whole Postman collection that makes this whole process of trying out the service really easy and simple. So let me see if I can just sort of show you what this looks like here. Again, I'll share all the links to this, but you can see that we have basically a whole OCI Postman collection here, and you can actually really easily use the document understanding collection that's here. The way that this works is that you'll want to basically export this collection. You can see when you export it, it will be basically something that's a JSON file that you'll use later. And you're going to also want to fork this OCI credentials element as well. And basically what you'll want to do is you'll want to populate basically your specific information about your tenancy OCID, user OCID, the private key and fingerprint information in order to use this in your own Postman client. So we have, again, some details about how you can do specifically this whole sort of initial setup stage within this lab 3 within our document understanding tutorial. So if you have any questions about specifically, what each of these fields are here, I won't spend time today talking about it since it's initial setup, but you can refer to our tutorial section if you're curious about that in order to get started. But basically, once you've done that, you can see that I have my own exported version of this already for the document understanding API. I can really easily then create a processor job, and you can see that there's already sort of a standard template here for specifically doing text extraction on a sample image or document file that you have. So for this example, I'm actually going to use the same exact document that I was using in the Python example, so you can see how I'm just literally interacting with the same exact file, just using Postman instead. So I've just specified the bucket name, namespace name, and object name of the input location, which is my document, and I've also specified the output location of where I want this information to be stored. And then basically what I do is I click send. So you can see now that I have a job ID, and I see the time accepted, time started, and the lifecycle state information from this processor job. So this is my processor job. If I want to get the details of that processor job, I can basically, I've already done this here, but you can just put that processor job ID here and see what the status is. So since this is something that's in a lifecycle state of succeeded, it actually means that the document is already processed, and you can see the actual response in the output location, this output bucket that I defined earlier, and I'll see if I can just quickly pull that up for you. So this was in a bucket I had called demos, and this one is ends in 6AQ. Let me pull this up for you. So you can see basically the job ID, you can see results, and then this is actually the JSON object that is storing the text extraction that is what I called from this, this one processor job. So again, that's how you can interact with the service using REST API calls. This whole collection is something that's available already on the OCI collection, and we have a whole tutorial on how you can get this set up, and you can start testing it yourself as well. So I'm going to walk through one more sort of end-to-end use case here. This is something where basically you're going to be using the document understanding service, but you may also need to use a few other services within OCI, like Visual Builder, as well as Oracle Integration Cloud. And that's where a lot of the power comes in from the document understanding service, because that's how you can create some sort of document process automation tool where maybe you create the workflow logic with Oracle Integration Cloud and maybe store that in some sort of SaaS location. And you can build a really easy business user-friendly front end using Visual Builder, all in a very sort of low-code state. So for this example here, this is a passport scenario where essentially what's happening is a user wants to let any applicant actually apply for a visa, basically using a front-end application where all they have to do is they upload their documents rather than having to manually input each field. So the front end was designed in Visual Builder for these certain fields that you see here. And then you can see that each of the fields is getting populated with a name from the document understanding service. So essentially on the back end, what's happening is that when a new document is being submitted by the end user, that is triggering a step that's calling the OCI document understanding service for passport key value extraction, and then returning the results for the specified fields that matter for this application process, which involves things like the passport ID number, the first name, the last name, and the document type, the expiry date, and the birth date, all in the front end of this service as well. So then instead of someone potentially incorrectly inputting some information, especially the document number, all the user has to do is they have to just essentially review this and make sure that it looks correct versus manually inputting it all together themselves. So there's a lot of different sort of use cases that have sort of the core backbone of potentially Oracle Integration Cloud, setting up some sort of orchestration flow, the document understanding service to extract the key information from the documents, and Visual Builder for a non-developer sort of business user-friendly front end to automate some sort of document process that's manual or partially manual at this time, and is a very originally time-consuming or tedious or error-prone process. So I want to actually do one more poll here, Tara, if that works for you, where I'm just sort of also curious about the different industries that everyone's working in as I talk through a few more sort of categories of use cases. And while people are filling this out, I'll also clarify a few questions I've seen in the poll. So there's a question about basically, do I have to train different versions of like an invoice model if there's variations in the format? That's basically the beauty of the pre-trained model, is that we've already trained our key value extraction models, like the invoice, receipts, and identity documents models to handle a variety of different types of formats. So you don't need to actually do any type of special configuration for the receipt key value extraction model. It's already trained and able to handle a lot of different sort of thousands and thousands of variations of what you might see on a typical invoice. And then there was another question too about, can you use Java? Yes, you can use Java, Python. Basically, there's a variety of different OCI SDKs that you can choose to use. And we have some sample code for basically the Python scripts available on our GitHub location. I'm curious about if there's requests for some JavaScripts that we can also upload there, or any other languages. We can share those as well if there's interest. So it seems like from the questions or the poll so far, it seems like the majority of industries are kind of spread across the board. Seems like there's a lot on the other side, if anyone is willing to sort of share where they work, but a lot of software services, and then sort of maybe banking and financial services. So I just want to share a bit of information on, use cases, first of all, by documents, just to provide some more details. So we've talked a lot about invoices and receipts, and I've shared you some examples of that also in the demos about how to sort of automate invoice data entry and basically accounts payable automation types of scenarios. For identity documents, this actually spans across a few different industries that are mentioned, where a lot of times some sort of ID is required for both banking customers for some sort of new employee, new customer onboarding, as well as for HR for employee onboarding, as well as basically a lot of like no-touch check-in experiences that might be part of the hospitality industry. I saw one person mention there from that area as well on the chat. For contracts, I shared also one of the table extraction sort of use cases as part of the demo there about basically different scenarios where you may want to classify among different types of contracts, because maybe there's a different type of retention and storing process you need to take depending on which contract you're handling. You can extract key information, especially table information, if you need to handle that in a different way, or run some analysis on it, or run an audit, as well as extract text, because maybe there's certain key fields you're trying to extract from those contracts as well. For resumes, again, this fits pretty squarely in a lot of the HR scenarios where maybe you want to classify this as part of different application documents that are being required for a new applicant. And then the text extraction, maybe there's certain types of fields you're trying to use as part of maybe like an employee matching type of scenario. Bill of lading, I just showed you one demo also of that for key value extraction, where there may be certain types of fields like we want to manage basically the volume, and also just the tracking of different carriers, shipping status of different types of shipping goods, and see if there's basically anything that's happening in terms of just overall management, as well as you could do something where you're training a predictive model on if there's some sort of forecasting of volume of shipping goods that might be happening over a certain quarter or a certain year based off of historical data. And then for bank statements, there's a lot of usually key information that's in the tables of a bank statement, as well as there's certain key fields usually at the top that are used by a lot of banking institutions. You can definitely use a combination of our pre-trained and custom features for those different types of use cases. And then just to dive into sort of more of an industry view, there's just a few examples here that seem to sort of fit also some of the responses of where everyone's sitting. So in financial services, this is something where you may want to use a document understanding service to extract bank statement details, or maybe categorize and classify different types of transactions based off of documents. There may be some tax document management that you're looking to do, or simplifying account reconciliation. For manufacturing, this is actually something where there is a lot of sort of originally paper-based document data. So we've talked a lot about the text extraction from shipping labels, as well as bill of lading documents. You may actually want to be able to use this to help with basically a search experience on repair manuals. Usually these are like several hundred pages long, and it's a certain specific person who's going out somewhere to triage some sort of issue that's happening with a certain type of piece of hardware that isn't working. That you may want to search for different types of issues or different categories within that very, very long repair manual. You could use this for managing suppliers and vendor payments, and also tracking and searching for shipments. On the healthcare side, one of the main use cases here could definitely be for processing medical claims automatically, or again, if you want to train a predictive model for maybe forecasting future claims, extracting patient information from different forms. There are many sort of form-based types of documents in the healthcare industry, classifying and categorizing medical records, and also streamlining patient referral management are some of the common use cases you could use on the document side for healthcare. So I'm just going to leave this one up here for a few minutes. This is, again, some of the resources that I mentioned throughout this webinar today. So there is basically a link to our sample tutorial, which has basically the details on how to use our Postman collection, how to use the Python SDK, how to use the console as well, all in basically one location. And then we have another location in this OCI AI samples page on GitHub for additional sample Python scripts for basically creating a processor job, checking the status of it, and extracting the results from object storage for each of the features within the document understanding service. So it's really helpful to just quick start something where you're trying to use the Python SDK. And then we also have public documentation. So I just put a link to that there where there's important policy information when you're first getting started using the document understanding service. If you have any questions along the way too, you can also reach out. Either you can reach out directly to me, and we also have a just general contact group as well. Thanks, everyone.